Okay, moving on to 14.3, the quadratic formula. Remember, we've been working with quadratic equations. So far, you know how to solve them by guessing, by factoring, by the square root method, by completing the square. And now we're going to look at the all-powerful quadratic formula, which will work on solving any of these. The reason you don't always use the quadratic formula is sometimes the other methods are faster and it's a little easier to do. But this is the quadratic formula, and you see there's a lot of variables in here, but our a value is in front of our squared term, and our b value is in front of our linear term, our first power, and then our c value is the constant. So this little piece of the quadratic formula is called the discriminant, and when you do the discriminant, just that piece, what it can tell you is how many, what types of solutions you're going to have. If you get a negative in here, you'd be taking the square root of a negative number, so it would be 2 non-reals. If you get a 0 in here, the square root of 0 is 0, and you'll see in one example why we get 1 real solution. And then if we get a positive number underneath that radical, we get 2 real solutions. So we're going to start with this one. So this is the discriminant, b squared minus 4ac. So I'm going to do 3 squared minus 4 times 1 times negative 6. Now be kind of careful with your signs here. We get 9, and then here we have this double negative, so we get 24, so we get plus 24, and we end up getting 33. Okay? So positive, 2 real solutions. Okay? So now to do the quadratic formula, and it's a good idea to just write it down each time, negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. Okay. And remember that in this case it's y is equal to, because our variable is y. And what I get here then is the opposite of b, so negative 3, plus or minus. We've already calculated this b squared minus 4ac, so I'm just going to write in the 33 that I already calculated, and then that's over 2. Okay? And then this won't simplify, the square root of 33 won't simplify, and if we look at this, this is actually our answer right here, the 2 solutions. If they ask you to write out each solution, then you would have to write out negative 3 plus the square root of 33 over 2, and negative 3 minus the square root of 33 over 2. And again, you can find the decimal approximations for those on your calculator. If for some reason they ask you to find the decimal approximation. Now, I recommend that you find a good website that has a quadratic formula calculator, and the good website will show you the steps so you can analyze if you're making mistakes where that might be taking place. Okay, so let's look through this one here. Let's first do the discriminant, b squared minus 4ac. So I have 4 squared minus 4. Sometimes you could use parentheses if you like parentheses better. The a value is 2 and the c value is 3. Okay, so I have 16 minus, let's see, 8 times 3 is 24. So I get negative 8 here. Okay, so that means that we're going to have 2 non-real solutions because we have this negative sign here. So 2 non-real. So working through the quadratic formula, negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. Remember, it's all over 2a, and since our variable is y, we'll put y equals. So I have y equals negative 4 plus or minus the square root of Well, we already calculated that. It was -8 over 2 times 2. 2 times 2. So I get y equals -4 plus or minus. Well, I could simplify this. Remember that -8 is going to simplify into 2 radical 2, and then we have our I. So I have 2 radical 2I over 4. Okay. So this looks pretty good. We got everything in, and what we have to recognize here, though, is that since all these are even here, I could divide them all by 2, okay, and I can simplify my solution. And you'll get used to kind of spotting these, that all of these can be reduced, but it has to be all 3 pieces. So if I divide this by 2, I get -2. If I divide this by 2, I get 1. So I have this. And if I divide the denominator by 2, I get 2. So this answer is nice, but remember we don't need this 1 here, so probably be a good idea to not type that 1 in for your solution. Okay, so all right, we'll look at a few more.